Hey, listener, it's Sunday the 19th of May, although possibly not for you, as we're joined by Tim Spiers. Hi, Tim.
Hi, James.
Matt Davies-Adams, just over from West London.
All right, I'm well.
Good stuff. And JJ Bull.
Hello.
Music's JJ Bull.
That's right.
Yeah. JJ, I've been enjoying your output of late.
Thank
Have you got something special in the works to celebrate our brand new Premier League champions?
I don't. I made some songs up earlier in a little live stream I do, but I did something on Pebbles and very good this time. Sometimes there's magic, sometimes it doesn't come, you know?
Right. Unless you're Man City, when it always comes.
Exactly.
By the way, where can people access such tunes as Mikel Arteta, You Made Everything Better?
You can, I guess if you follow me on Twitter or go to my YouTube, which is JJ Bull.
Bull.
You'll just find me there, yeah. It's my personal thing.
I've got to say, JJ, it bangs.
That's really nice, James. Thank you. It genuinely makes me feel really happy. Thank you.
No, it really does. Crikey, much like the final day of this Premier League season, Tim, you were watching 4 games at once?
4 games at once.
Was that enough for you?
Did you?
Yeah, well, I was sort of flicking between all 4 on the same device just to really get in the spirit.
Was it on the laptop?
Yeah.
But JJ was rewinding.
Was I?
Yeah, that's right, isn't it? That was the key to this.
I was rewinding, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh.
yeah, Now TV have now got a little plug for Now TV here. They've now got a function where you can rewind the games. So I was going back and seeing all the goals and some very funny lines, I've got to say, from various broadcasters.
Oh, yeah?
Gary Neville was very annoyed that City's pitch invaders weren't children, but were 40-year-old blokes. Jamie Redknapp said City always do things the hard way, which I laughed out loud at. And then to top it all, Carragher said the scenes of farewell to Klopp at full time had never been seen in football before.
No, I mean, quite. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that particular instance of Klopp waving goodbye had never been seen in football before, but
yeah, it was emotional.
Making.
It was emotional. You've seen so much. I mean, attack ships and flames off the shores of Orion and that, Matt. But you saw the goal of the season today, didn't you?
I surely did. I thought I was coming here as a spare part today, Premier League-wise, and then Moises Caicedo, he said, you shall go to the podcast and contribute something. Really pleased as well, talking musically. It's his first goal. First song on the PA at half-time, Ecuador by Sash. Lovely touch for the Ecuadorian midfielder as he gets his
That is nice, isn't it? For anyone who didn't see it, and I'm not sure how much room Chelsea Bournemouth is going to get later on, but for anyone who didn't see it, what happened?
So basically, he got the ball. Annoyingly, it was just a yard or two over the halfway line, so not quite from within his own half. But this is a guy who, as I say, nobody will remember this, but he scored a brilliant goal in that mad game at Spurs, but it got disallowed because there was a foul for a penalty in the build-up. So that was one of the great lost goals. But yeah, he trumped that by some distance by lobbing poor Neto from some distance. Amazing goal. Yeah, he's come close to scoring a few times, but he could play till he's 52. He's never scored a better goal than that. It was nice to be able to see it, albeit overshadowing Thiago Silva a little bit.
Yeah, right, of course. What would you say to anyone who said that's just a matter of kicking the ball hard?
It's very difficult to kick the ball hard. It's even more difficult to kick it accurately when there are people trying to stop you from kicking it hard and into quite a small... Well, he had no margin for error, basically, when he took the shot. So, yeah, watch it again, then try it, and then go, that is quite difficult, I think.
I'm totally on board with its difficulty. Rating being astounding. It was a magnificent goal. One of the many delights of this final day, one or two of which we'll try and relive with you now, listener. Of course, there was the title race, beyond everything else. That lasted a long time, 79 seconds in. Phil Foden slams the door shut on that one, or did he? Because although he made it 2-0 after 18 minutes, and although Arsenal were doing their best to arse it up against Everton, you then had West Ham popping up with that magnificent Mo Kudus goal. But I've gone straight past the Phil Foden opener, which was another gem.
He's done it a few times this season. In fact, I think I saw Mark Carey of The Athletic saying he scored 6 goals from outside the box, which is more than anyone else this season.
Correct.
And they've been important goals as well. That's the thing. I think he's done it in the Champions League as well, maybe a couple of times. And it makes sense if you're good at shooting from outside the box. It helps when the opponent knows you're trying to score on the penalty spot. So you make sure you practice a little bit from the outside. But his technique is amazing. Like, he puts his foot straight through it and it just drills in a straight line. I love those goals when they go straight in the top corner.
And it's a much needed little injection of kind of romanticism into Manchester City winning the title for the 4th time in a row, isn't it? A local boy, been there since he was 8, just won Player of the Year, is kind of rubber stamps the title-winning victory.
I also like the sort of the very like Guardiola coached taking the ball on the half turn inside, so that you take it on the turn and push it forward in one touch. It's a weird thing to notice today watching Man City. I was thinking how good, this is so stupid, but all the players, the first touch is amazing. You don't know which way they're going to put it when they get the first touch, but they always move it a different way. Like it's the first thing you get taught when you're getting coached when you're young. Is your first touch to take the ball somewhere.
I guarantee you won't be able to predict which way my first touch would go, but in an entirely different way. How much of this game did you see, Tim? Between jumping, which game were you focusing most on?
Mostly on the City game because it felt like, well, West Ham have got to do something to make a day of this. Right? There's no point watching Arsenal lose. But yeah, I guess, and there was some slight jeopardy after the Kudus overhead kick going into
Particularly when
half-time.
the rumour spread at the Emirates that West Ham had got another. That was cruel. I don't know who started that.
That would have been Everton fans, I think, who were having a great time in the away end, serenading Richard Masters with a fair few songs about Premier League, alleged corruption and whatnot. I remember Wolves did the same at Anfield a couple of years ago on the last day, pretending that Aston Villa had scored. And you're sort of see and hear it go right around the stadium. It's infectious. But yeah, there was a bit of jeopardy when Kudus scored, but then West Ham didn't have a single shot thereafter.
Right.
Apart from one via a hand, which of course doesn't count. So yeah, the jeopardy very much ended at that point. Yeah,
Rodri slotting home a third one for City just before the hour, and it was kind of all over after that Thomas Suchet late on notwithstanding. Arsenal did eventually find a winner. Who actually got that for Arsenal?
Kai Havertz.
There were one or two questions about whether there was a hand involved there. But no question as to who is the brand new Premier League champion, and the same one as last year, of course, and the year before that, and the year before that. It is Manchester City. Says Jurgen Klopp, put any other manager in Man City, they don't win the Premier League 4 times in a row. That's down to him, pointing at Pep Guardiola and his team. Does that mean that they can do whatever they want? No, but I don't know what they did, if anything, and I'm not here to say that they have, which probably sums up the whole kind of quandary over that. With that sentiment, we should probably celebrate what a magnificent footballing outfit Manchester City are. And to help us with that, let's speak to a man who's fresh back from the Etihad, David Mooney from the Blue Moon podcast. David, from where are you speaking?
I am at the side of Alan Turing Way, just off the Etihad.
Nice one. I mean, I couldn't help but notice on our Zoom call that you've just jumped over a fence to walk onto somebody's field, much like a lot of Man City fans today, eh?
Maybe. I mean, who could say? I might be trespassing right now. Who could possibly say?
But you know what? It's a moment of madness. It's celebration. You've just won the title again. What was it like there at the Etihad?
It was incredible. I mean, it's been a funny old season for City because I don't think they've been as good as they have been in previous years. And then you get to the final day of the season, they've jumped that hurdle of Spurs away in the midweek, which was obviously the huge challenge they had. And then they go 2 up really quickly and really, really simply. And you're like, oh, this is great. The party atmosphere can start. And then West Ham score. And everybody gets tense and everybody gets nervous again. It's a nice little reminder that they actually have to work to do this. They actually have to put the hard yards in to get the achievement. And then Rodri's goal goes in. It's a really, really nice afternoon from there on in. I mean, there's a little bit of drama towards the end with West Ham scoring again with a disallowed VAR goal. But from where I was sat, it looked like a nailed-on handball. So there was a chance that it might stand. But I mean, we all kind of went, they should rule this one out, and then party time again.
No, I think you were kind of reaching hard to find some jeopardy there around that late.
Well, I mean, you say this, and I've heard this all week, but I mean, the moment Heung-min Son ran clean through at the 87th minute against in the Spurs game, you can't tell me there's no jeopardy in the title race. My backside fell out of my body on that when that happened, because I just thought that's it. That's the title in a moment, and then. Because City have navigated the jeopardy doesn't mean that it wasn't there. They did very, very well today to make it a comfortable game, but they've had to navigate it over the course of the season. Now, listen, I'm not an idiot. I know as a neutral, and any neutrals listening to this, City winning it again is not an interesting thing to happen. But the drama over the course of the season, Arsenal have had it in their hands, Liverpool have had it in their hands, City had it in their hands. It has chopped and changed through the course of the season. And yeah, okay, I accept that for a lot of neutrals, they didn't want City to win the league. And if City had drawn or lost today and Arsenal had won, then it's a much more dramatic final day of the season. But at the same time, like, City have worked to get there. As I said before, I don't think this City team is as good as it was last season. I don't think it's as good as the one that won in 2022 when they had the Villa comeback. So they've had their obstacles to overcome. They've just overcome them, and they went through a patch in the autumn time. There was a run of something like 4 wins in 11 games or 7 games or something like they had a really sticky autumn, and they went away to the Club World Cup, which actually came as a blessing at that point. They needed something to go away, distract themselves, and come back and actually, get their SHIT together, They really had to kind of battle through that hard period. And Arsenal, I mean, you'll hear people calling Arsenal bottlers, and you'll hear people, saying all sorts of stuff about Arsenal. Don't listen to it. They've really, really pushed City this season. They've been fantastic, and it's just unfortunate for them that they've run into a City team that, was in battle mode at the end of the season, because when you hit City in battle mode, it's almost like City need battle mode sometimes to be able to get over the line, and that's what they've done this year. When the chips were not down, because we all know the advantages that City have, but when the going got tough in various different parts of the season, they just did it. You think of Oscar Bobb's winner at Newcastle when it looked like they were going to drop points there. You think of Stefan Ortega against Heung-min Son the other night. It's those moments where they just got their heads down and got on with it. And the rest of it, all the off the field stuff, the charges, everything else, we can talk about that till the cows come home. But there's still massive sporting achievement that's happened over the course of this season.
David, is there some part of you that's kind of still pinching yourself, thinking back to the days, I don't know if you were there, the third division, that kind of thing? But,
I was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, they had Paul Dickoff be part of the trophy celebration today. And the one thing City do get right quite well is the fact that they don't forget that sort of history. Listen, we all know, I'm a lottery winner. I get to live out the dreams that most football fans don't get to live out. And I have to pinch myself to remind myself not to take that for granted. That Division 2 season, a lot of us look back on it, and myself included, I'm guilty of this. We look back with rose-tinted specs, and we think about how great it was to be, experiencing the new thing of going to Lincoln and going to York and Chesterfield and all these places like that. And that isn't to do down those clubs. City deserved to be there. They were not a good team at that time, and those clubs, they had a right to play City, because City were, for want of a better word, crap. That 98-99 and 99-2000 period is my City. That's the City I grew up watching, and I can never, ever forget it. One of the most emotional goals that I've ever seen go in was Mark Kennedy's at Blackburn in 2000, because that was the day I knew we were back in the Premier League. We were going back up when he scored that. And if you'd have said to that 11, 12, 13-year-old, one day you'll see City win 4 Premier League titles in a row, 6 titles in 7 years, the Champions League, I'd have been like, get out of town. There's no way that happens. We all know how it's happened. We all know what they've had to spend to get there. That's the sad truth of modern football. But we have to enjoy it, and we have to drink it in, as you say, because most fans don't get the chance to live this. So the fact that we do, we can't take it for granted. We have to enjoy it.
There you go, Man City. 4 in a row sounds like a lot, but of course on the continent, you're barely getting started with 4, eh? You look at Bayern, have just had their reign ended on 11 in a row.
Juve did 9, didn't they?
Juve did 9.
Celtic
Batid
did
Borisov currently, I think 13 they got to. Yeah. Sorry, JJ?
Celtic did 9, didn't they?
Did they do 9? Yeah.
Yeah.
Promoted teams all get relegated straight away in those leagues too.
I should know that, shouldn't I? Well, it hasn't been settled yet in Syria. But
Pep does say that he's closer to leaving than staying.
So has he just said that?
Yeah, maybe. We've talked with the club. My feeling is that I want to stay now. I'll stay next season, and during this season we will talk. But 8 or 9 years, we will see.
Okay, he's got 1 more year on his deal.
Yeah, maybe that's that.
Maybe. Mikel Arteta, former Pep assistant manager, who came so close with this Arsenal side, 89 points. What does he have to do to bridge that difference with City, JJ?
Well, I was trying to work out. I think 89 points is enough to win it in 11 of the last 20 seasons.
Okay, so actually not that many.
I'm pretty bad with numbers, but I think that's right. So, I mean, it's an astonishing amount of points to not win the title, basically. I think what they'd have to do next, I was trying to think this earlier, because how do you get over what Man City have done? Man City have this thing that you can't really, I was about to say you can't really buy, but you have like a team that can overcome any single situation. They have the experience of how to deal with those scenarios. Foden alluded to it earlier, actually, in his post-match. He said how they've been in this exact same scenario before, so I think you kind of know how to deal with it, and it must help just calm yourself down. You get like total control in that game against West Ham. West Ham they might not have even been there. There was no, Man City has such control over that. Arsenal lots of control, but I think they're a bit more like, I mean, they're like a turbocharged version of like Everton. They seem quite similar in style, like big lads, defend really well, maximise their strengths. Arsenal have much better players, and they do a lot more as well. To be clear, I think Arsenal are much better and have better players before anyone gets knocked. But the thing they have to do to improve is then look for the difference makers, because Arsenal have players who can control the game, and they're really well coached, and they've got really good individuals. But I think they don't have the standout. So if they can simply find a striker who can score all sorts of goals.
You're quoting Mika Richards.
Yeah, well, he solved it. That's what you need to do. If you sign a striker who can score all sorts of goals,
right,
then they'll have it. But I genuinely mean they need someone who is the outlier, which don't really exist. It's easy to say you need to sign Lionel Messi, or you need to sign Erling Haaland or Kevin De Bruyne, but these players don't really exist. You've got to take a bet on them when they're young and get them in and hope they turn into that. So who's really there? I mean, Real Madrid have them all now. Like Arda Güler started scoring all the goals. He was one of the next big bright things. Jude Bellingham's at Real Madrid. Everyone's kind of there. But if they found someone like that superstar, that would be the thing when they can control the game, and then that person can win them the game on their own. That's maybe the only other difference. But I mean, they're really well coached, good team.
Well, he's proven time and again for years in a row now that he can do what he needs to do next and improve the team.
Right.
You know, you look at their league positions: 8th, 5th, 2nd, but points tallies more importantly: 56 to 61 to 69 to 84 to 89. I completely agree with JJ's point about needing a striker to score those extra goals. I mean, they've shared them around a bit this year. Saka's got 16, Havertz 13, Trossard 12. But you know, they need their Haaland or their Isak to score 10 more than that.
It's hard to get that superstar striker when you don't have the medals to put on the table, isn't it? Say, come here and you'll win something, like with Haaland. That kind of made the decision. I think the frustration for Arsenal will be that they took 4 points off City this season.
Well, they're unbeaten against the Big Six this season.
And City had that one slip up at Wolves, didn't they? Really, that was their kind of brain fart result of the season. Arsenal lost home and away to Villa. That's kind of acceptable. Villa finished 4th. Lost at home to West Ham. You're going to get one of those in the season. But yeah, it feels really harsh to have beaten City and drawn with them at the Etihad.
It'll come a time though, won't it? Because like City, they'll have loads of experience to get from this, and then they can expand and get better and better and better. And the thing is now the squad is so well set up that they don't need to buy depth players. They need to buy players who make them better on the first team, so they can spend all their money on that and focus on that.
The core are coming into their prime. Eight of their sort of first 11 lately are aged 22 to 26. So you'd expect them to keep improving with the team they've got.
And they ought to have the wiggle room to make one big signing if they need it. Now they've been back in the Champions League for a year, right? So they've got more money. They can attract better players. If they did want to go and make a statement signing, it's just whether that's in the model of the club to say, we're prepared to pay $300 a week for somebody.
Declan Rice was quite a statement signing, I guess, from that point of view. So, yeah, I guess we'll see what happens over the summer.
But it's different taking a central midfielder from West Ham, isn't it?
Okay.
To a superstar striker from...
So we're already talking of next season's title race. Yeah, they can do it.
Cut to the end of next season. 5 in a row, really. That's amazing. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, next up, let's talk about some other things as this Premier League campaign comes to its conclusion. Looking ahead to Wednesday's Dublin Europa League final, which arguably the most intriguing of the European Cup climaxes, with these two kind of fairy tale stories. Bayer Leverkusen, who in the meantime have made it 51 games unbeaten now, first German side to ever go through an entire domestic league campaign without losing a single game, on their way to the Meisterschale. Is that what they call it? I think it is. Bayern Munich, who, as we mentioned before, had done 11 in a row, finished 3rd. Anyway, now it's a day of goodbyes, of departures. In the Premier League, we had David Moyes, who had his last game with West Ham up at the Etihad. You had De Zerbi, who Brighton announced would be leaving prior to the Man United game. There's a lot of question marks over a couple of other managers like Pochettino and Erik ten Hag. But without question, the standout emotional event of the day was Jurgen Klopp's farewell to Anfield. Tim, 2-0 victory for Liverpool over your Wolves.
Yeah, pretty straightforward, especially after Nelson Semedo's red card for a horrible ankle-high tackle on McAllister. I'm sorry to say that Gary O'Neill's completely lost the plot because he's saying it should have been a yellow and that VAR had to get Wolves again. It's like, just give it up, Gary.
He was doing so well. I love I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed, Gary O'Neill.
Exactly. But yeah, obviously it was extremely emotional. Klopp was saying goodbye before full time. The camera was really focusing in on his eyes during You'll Never Walk Alone to see if it shed. It was tear cam, basically.
Yeah.
But his lip did wobble, I can confirm.
Yeah.
There was a wobbled lip, and then the speeches went on for quite some time after.
They did. I liked the bit where he invited the cop and the rest of the stadium to sing a song for Arne Slot, the man who'll be following him.
But did he? I missed that bit.
It's an upgrade on your job now is to get behind. Yeah.
Yeah. Live is life, Jay.
Yes. I can't remember the tune now, but I do know it.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, we talked about this on Thursday and the huge gap I think it's going to leave in the Premier League. So much stuff's been going on that I think, I mean, I certainly wasn't kind of fully aware of how much it was going to feel strange when suddenly the Premier League didn't have a Jurgen Klopp in it. But we'll have an Arne Slot instead in, as people have been pointing out, that slot. So Liverpool finishing off with their first clean sheet in 11 games. I feel like I'm massively underselling this game, but there's nothing else really to say about it, is there? He left. Everyone was very upset. He's been incredible.
He's one of the best ever in the Premier League. Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for Pep Guardiola and tiny margins, he could have been one of the most successful managers they've ever had.
Where does tiny margins manage?
Like,
He sounds interesting.
He's an up-and-comer. He's the next Brighton boss, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but things like the ball almost over the line against Man City, and I think Thibaut Courtois in the Champions League final have been unbelievable. It's just impossible to score against, and they come away with an XG higher than their opponents and things like that. Yeah, and everyone knows how good Jurgen Klopp is. And
yeah, I wonder where we'll see him next.
Those scenes at full time really hammer home just what a tough job for the next guy, because the emotion between Klopp and his players. I mean, him and Van Dijk were almost inseparable on the pitch at full time. The hugs, the emotion, the tears. And so much of the success that Klopp has built has been on that energy and that emotion feeding through him and the players. So, we can talk about, Arne Slot needs to improve the defence and make them a bit more organised. Yeah. But, what about, the current players that have done so well, like Van Dijk and Salah? How are they going to react to a new manager coming in and with very different
done to death
messages?
As well, but it's not even how the players play; it's how you connect with the fans in the city, and that there's something about that Liverpool manager job where you have to really get it to make it work. And it's very rare. In the same way, he's not been there as long as Alex Ferguson was at Man United, but. So Alex Ferguson was Man United. That was what he was. And Klopp, I think, for many people, will just be what Liverpool are.
Right. And United arguably is still looking for the person to kind of successfully take over.
Well, they'll be helped by Jurgen Klopp not being in the director's box, looming over his successor every week.
Should we move on to Man United and their 2-0 victory over Brighton, which... Where does that leave? That still leaves them 8th because Newcastle also won. The teams involved in that scrap for Europa or Conference League places. But United finishing off with a 2-0 victory, as I say, down at the Amex, which was definitely Roberto De Zerbi's final game as Brighton manager. And potentially the last league game for Ten Hag as well, though, of course, they have the FA Cup final next weekend, which could earn them a place in the Europa League. As it stands, they won't be having that. What was the reason for Brighton's announcement?
As in why the split? Andy Naylor's done a good piece on The Athletic about this, saying chiefly on recruitment and how obviously Brighton, as we all know, will buy unheard talents from Timbuktu, but they also bring in sort of older players like Lallana and Milner and Welbeck, but not really much in between. And De Zerbi wants the in-between. He wants players in their prime who can come in and instantly improve this team and adhere to his, complicated tactical instructions. But it seems like Brighton are going to continue with the way that's made them so successful in recent years and find the next manager who's more aligned with that than De Zerbi is.
It's interesting to see if that's sustainable, isn't it? Because, there's been a massive tail-off for Brighton in the second half of the season, and obviously that can be attributed in part to European football and maybe to De Zerbi losing his mojo a bit as well. But there might be some credence to that they do need some of those players because, Welbeck doesn't score very often, does he? And Lallana and Milner haven't really contributed much in terms of playing time. So maybe he's got a point.
United had a bit of a tail off as well, certainly from last season when they finished third. 8th is their worst ever placing at the end of a Premier League campaign.
They're quite bad. They finished on 60 points, which is not a lot for Man United. Come on, lads. They've had, in their defence, things you can see in their defence, they've had...
In their defence, they've had Casemiro sometimes.
They've had no players sometimes, because of his injuries, right? That's the problem. But, they are, in positives, I guess, not for Man United fans, they are really entertaining to watch because something's always happening. And it becomes quite fun because the games are end-to-end, things are always going on. But it also, having grown up, watching them dominate in the 90s,
right.
There's a certain, it's not that it's funny or anything, it's just that it feels like, that was then, this is now, so now you can see what
David Mooney in his school trip tent.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the difference that they had going on now. And but it is incredible that the amount of money they spent on wages and players, transfer fees, to put that squad together, to then play so haphazardly, and there is a clear style, but it's mad. And then,
they did get a win today. I have to say, we weren't able to see it.
Yeah.
We
That
know a couple of
Zerbi
games.
news was served up nicely for them, though. Wasn't it?
That's
clearly
true.
a bit of rancor there. So, it was
they've got a game next weekend, the FA Cup final. You're shaking your head, Tim.
Come on. It'd be all over after 10 minutes.
Do you think?
I'm really disappointed with today's outcome because they deserved the Conference League. Anthony deserves to go to Kazakhstan next season for a horrible away game on a Thursday night. That's what they've earned this season. But now they're going to have 3 midweeks, which would be an advantage.
Unless they win the FA Cup, Tim. In which case they get Europa League.
Does anyone think they got any chance?
There's always a chance.
From a Chelsea
That's
perspective,
one of
I'm
the
desperately
teams that
hoping not. But unless Jack Grealish is in charge of everything celebration-wise for the next 7 days, I can't see anything else scuppering.
Did you see
City.
Jack Grealish's what would you call that, confetti blower mishap?
Oh, you pointed this out to me.
Yeah,
Yes.
he would. I don't know how he basically shot himself with a.
At least people are talking about him this season. Then.
bazooka.
That's going on my list of band names.
Excellent. All right. Well, so that's coming up next Saturday. We'll have the chance to talk about that in Thursday's show. And well done to Man United. Next up, let's move on to Chelsea. First of all, the women's team, Matt, who were also taking on Man United at Old Trafford on Saturday.
Yeah.
So after it looked like their title hopes were over, it was back on. They were level on points with Man City. Emma Hayes' Blues having a 2-goal advantage on goal difference. And they go to Man United, needing to match Man City's result. What did they do?
Theoretically, the tougher of the 2 games, we were told as well. Chelsea had sort of really laboured to a 1-0 win against Spurs at Leyton Orient midweek and looked absolutely gassed in that game, and you thought, Man United have just won the FA Cup, this is going to be difficult. But there was one key difference between the 2 games, and that was Myra Ramirez was fit to play for Chelsea, and she just dominated Millie Turner, the Manchester United centre-half, who'd got herself in a bit of trouble for some Instagram interactions earlier in the season when Chelsea knocked United out the FA Cup in the semi-finals, but she couldn't get anywhere near Ramirez. Chelsea were 2 up inside 8 minutes. They were absolutely fabulous. United were atrocious. There must be something about that Old Trafford pitch which makes midfielders wearing red shirts just melt into thin air because there was just nothing there for them whatsoever. But it was a wonderful Chelsea performance. They were so good. Johanna Rytting-Kanerud, amazing. Really brilliant tactical setup from Emma Hayes. A couple of surprise selections in her team, but it was a devastating performance. And Fran Kirby scoring a goal in front of the 3,000 Chelsea supporters in her last game for the club coming off the bench was a proper tear-inducing moment for me and many other people. It was absolutely magnificent. 7th WSL title win in 12 years for Emma Hayes. This will be the best of the lot from where they were. It looked finished a few weeks back.
5 in a row, and the final score 6-0 as well.
Yeah, incredible. The way she's masterminded it in these last few weeks has proven what an exceptional talent she is. She goes to the USA this week to start camp, ready for for the Olympics. But there's no doubt in my mind that she is one of the most important figures in the history of Chelsea Football Club, not just the women's team, the whole football club. As time goes on and women's football becomes more significant, I think her achievements will come into starker focus, and there'll never be anybody like her again who manages the Chelsea women's team. They just can't be. She's taken them from a pub team to the best in England by a mile for 5 years in a row. Extraordinary.
Good Lord. Well, Full Time Europe is out on Tuesday, the Athletics Women's Football Podcast, and I'll be talking more about that game. Chelsea put out a statement kind of summing up their season, and there were a lot of words for Emma Hayes there and various other things. That was very silent on the subject of Mauricio Pochettino, though, whose future with the club, despite the fine form they've been in these final weeks, looks to be in some doubt, Matt.
Yeah, it does. The talk for weeks has been that there's going to be a conversation had at the end of the season and not before. Obviously, Chelsea have got 2 sporting directors, so they need to put their heads together to have a chat about it and then get it signed off by...
not 2 managers.
Yeah. Well, actually, Emma Hayes suggested in a pre-match press conference that in women's football you should have 2 managers for the team if they're both women, because they have so much other stuff to deal with, particularly if they're parents. So maybe that is what they're floating. She also said she'd come back in some form or fashion, and given that Chelsea are trying to sell a stake in the women's team, maybe she could buy it. But yes, Mauricio Pochettino, it's a weird one. He's obviously hit par, I would say. It was supposed to be qualifying for Europe, ideally for the Champions League, but they finished above Newcastle and Man United and West Ham, which seemed unthinkable a few months ago. They've improved from 12th last season to 6th this. There was some talk, paper talk yesterday about Kieran McKenna maybe interesting Chelsea, which seemed to me like a reaction to Brighton looking for a new manager potentially. But yeah, Mauricio Pochettino, I don't think he could have done any more. And what I think is significant is that he's clearly got the support of the players. And we know from before times Chelsea that if you don't have the support of the players, then that's not ideal for the head coach. But yeah, if it were up to me, I'd be keeping him. But oddly enough, it's not.
Matt says he'd keep him, Tim. Is the sensation that Chelsea feel the same way?
I think, I mean, this run might be a little bit too late. I hope from their point of view they don't rip everything up once again. I mean, they can't help but spend so much money and bring in so many players, but can they do that again? Really? I feel like there's a little bit of promise in this team, and they're the youngest team in the league, aren't they? So
even with Thiago Silva.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So I feel like, plus the injury, I think they've had injuries worse than anyone this year in the injury woe is me table. Chelsea are probably top of it. So yeah, I'd like to see them make 1 or 2 smart additions and grow with this team. And if you look at him and Ten Hag, there's a much stronger case for keeping Pochettino rather than Ten Hag.
Okay.
Liam Toomey just has published in The Athletic that Pochettino says he had dinner with Todd Bowley on Friday night.
Okay.
As he waits to find out the results of the club's review of his performance.
Right.
And then in a separate interview on 5 Live, he was asked if they were all on the same page. He kind of ducked out the question.
See, if I was Mauricio Pochettino at my performance review, I'd be bringing Mark Cucurella in and saying, look at this guy. Everybody was laughing at him. Look at him now. He's amazing. And that is a clear example of him coaching a player and making them better over the course of the season. Jackson, 17 goals in his first season, more than Drogba managed. Yeah, I don't think he could have done much more, save for win that League Cup final, which they really ought to have.
Yeah. Okay. They finish above Newcastle, who wrapped up their season with a 4-2 win over Brentford. They finished 7th, which will be enough for a Conference League spot, unless Man United win the FA Cup, in which case they get nothing, buttons.
Newcastle probably want the Conference League as well, don't they? Because they haven't won anything for ages, and they ought to walk that. So
yeah, it's good when you're not really been in Europe that much. I mean, Newcastle were in Champions League obviously in the 90s quite a lot, and last season. But there's something enjoyable about it when you're on the upward trajectory. Aberdeen were in the Conference League this season and loved it.
There you go. There you go. And Newcastle United fans, that's your level.
But their goal scorer numbers are insane.
Newcastle.
Actually crazy. So they're the first team to score 80 and concede 60 in a 20-team top-flight season since Blackburn and Sunderland 110 years ago.
Good Lord.
It is amazing.
Wow.
Man United scored 80 goals when they won the league in 1999. That's how many goals Newcastle have scored this year. The great entertainers of our time.
Much like Sheffield United, who've done wonders for goal scoring themselves.
Because it has been a record year for goal scoring since the Premier League began, even allowing for games that had more. This is the most goals ever.
Sheffield United finishing with 104 goals. In fact, only one team was not able to score against Sheffield United this season. Do you know who that was?
Man United?
Actually, no. It was Brentford.
It was 0-0 at Bramall Lane.
I'm going to get angry tweets from people today. Please leave me alone.
Spurs added another 3 to their conceded tally on this final day of the season. Kulusevski got a brace, and Porro absolutely lashed one in. There's a lot of lashing going on this final day. I think everyone
I think it's last day, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just going to lash this. Doesn't matter if my hamstring snaps now.
Yeah, indeed so. There were other games on match day 38. 9 out of the 10 had something riding on them, even if it was kind of a technicality like Luton and Forest's fixtures, where you needed that massive swing in order to change Luton's relegation. It didn't come. Luton got beaten 4-2 by Fulham. Forest, Matt, signing off with a 2-1 win over Burnley.
Chris Wood back at his old house and knocking down doors or something. But yeah, it was good that we didn't stay up on goal difference, I suppose. But I've got big concerns about Forest on and off the pitch over the next couple of years, I think.
Of course.
The owner is doing this odd thing of positioning himself as the saviour of a city that's on its knees and needs him to come and build a sparkly new stadium right on the border of Derby, 6 miles from the city centre. Yeah, not for me. I think at least one player is going to have to be sold this summer. Probably, 25 journeymen will come in via Olympiacos and we'll be in the same position that we were looking for a new manager in November.
Magnificent. Mariolakis had previously said that he thought there was no way that Forest should
He
leave
brought
the City
in
ground.
a guy to be the chairman called Tom Cartledge, who did an interview to say the City ground is our forever home 2 months ago. Yeah, so big vault fast there. But yeah, we shall see. I don't know how feasible it is. I don't think there's 50,000 people who are going to go and want to watch Forest in winning, a couple of games at home in the Premier League or scrapping around in the Championship in a couple of years. So hopefully it's all pie in the sky. But it's good that we stayed up.
Tapping into the Derby market, of course.
Yeah, well, quite, yeah, across the city. Yeah, I'm pleased that the 4-point deduction wasn't telling. And actually it's good for the Premier League, isn't it, that relegation hasn't been decided by teams who've been...
Or indeed
deducted
after the
points, I
final
guess.
day of the season.
Quite, yeah.
Yeah. All right. And Crystal Palace beat Aston Villa 5-0. Good Lord. Would hate for that to go unremarked because it's another incredible result, admittedly against a team that might be a little bit on the beach, but 5-0 for Palace. Continue this incredible run. 19 points from the last 21 available under Oliver Glasner. And John-Philippe Mateta with 13 goals in 13 games now under the Austrian manager.
They're finishing top half, which is incredible, really. The goals, they're the epitome of confidence. Like the way they're like 1-2s or long range shots or taking players on. Mateta and Eze and Elise completely in sync. You really hope that those three kind of stay
I was
together.
going to
for
say
next
the
season.
same thing. I don't know what's going to happen with them. It'd be nice to see it last a bit longer. That three, or the two especially. I mean, Mateta, maybe you could put any striker in there. I don't want to take away from what he's managed to achieve because obviously there's a player in there if he's managing to score as many as he is. But it's those close combinations when you get really good players who just can telepathically know what each other's going to do. That really helps around the area. Just get little 1-2s going. It's really hard to defend that. It's the secret to winning 5-a-side games is the 1-2. Get it in the box. Not 1-2.
There's no chance that Glasner is going to go to Bayern Munich, then, is there? Is that just totally...
If they pay 100 million euros, apparently.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, if it's him or nobody, then maybe
Well,
it's
no, I
worth
think
paying
Hansi
the money.
Flick's quite well positioned, but yeah. It is a remarkable situation that Bayern are scrabbling around for. To find the person who's going to take them back, they hope, to the top of the Bundesliga. Tim, The Athletic asked a number of writers to provide one word to sum up the 23-24 Premier League. Karl Anker called it farcical. Nick Miller said exhausting. Oliver Kay said asterisk. Tim Spiers said football. And in many ways, how right you were.
Can't say any better than
In
that.
all its complexities and nuances and drama and everything else.
It's been good. It's been a good... I've really enjoyed
enjoyed
the majority
it,
of the
yeah.
season. The goals, the 4-3s.
Yeah.
It's a shame with the points deduction sort of sullied it a little bit. But yeah, we had a three-way title race for a lot of it.
I mean, all due respect, man, it was quite fun seeing teams suddenly getting a magic power-up, eating a mushroom or whatever, and then like flying up 3 places or down 6 or whatever. But yeah, all's well that ends well. All right. Very good. Listen, before we leave you, a quick word on the Championship playoff final next Sunday at Wembley. It's going to be... Are you going along, Matt?
Yeah, the whole What the EFL gang are going.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
So we're very much looking forward to that. And we've got the final that we wanted as well. After normally the Championship playoff semi-finals are like the funnest, maddest games ever. And it's totally not been the case this year. They've either been drab or finished fairly quickly. But the as unappealing as it might sound to say, oh, which team's going to bounce back at the first attempt out of Southampton and Leeds, actually stylistically it should be a really interesting football match. And obviously, Wembley will be packed. One would think. Russell Martin, interesting coach. Leeds had been absolutely rotten for weeks, but smashed Norwich in the second leg of their semi at Ellen Road, and have got some really exciting forward players. So it should be a good game at Wembley on Sunday next week.
A 4-0 win in that second leg by Leeds, which saw Norwich firing David Wagner the very next morning. Very good. We also got the League One and League Two playoff finals, which took place this weekend, and the results were?
Well, today on Sunday, Crawley won the League Two final against Crewe, and it was unexpected that would be the final, actually, because MK Dons and Doncaster, the teams they faced in the semis, were both heavy favourites to go through. But Crawley's a really interesting one. The Athletic have done a lot of stuff on them of late, over the last year or two. You might remember John Yems, the unsavoury manager, who was fired for some pretty horrible reasons, but they were taken over by We're All Going to Make It, they're called, this group of crypto guys, and sort of widely derided first season, brought in a manager, sacked him straight away, gave a load of YouTubers trials, put a bloke from The Only Way is Essex on the pitch for a bit, and they've scrapped all that, got a really good manager, Scott Lindsay, in, made a late run for the playoffs, got in and won them. So yeah, they've really kind of flipped that story on its head. It's actually quite interesting to see. And again, to plug the Athletic, there's a good interview with Scott Lindsay, who's had some horrible sort of personal hardships that he's got over to get to where he is today. So that's well worth the read. And yeah, in League One, big upset. Oxford beat Bolton. Bolton were heavy favourites to win that too. And we had Robin Cowan of Match of the Day on What the FL last week, big Oxford fan, previewing the game, and she was kind of saying, yeah, it'd be good, but we're in no way ready to compete in the Championship. So it might be a difficult season for them next year, but they're a club with a lot of ambition, got a new ground in the plans, bit of money going in. So yeah, interesting to see how they get on next year.
Very nice. Are you doing a What the EFL this week?
We sure are. Yeah, we'll be reflecting on those League One and League Two games and looking ahead to the big final.
Very nice. Look forward to that, Matt. I think that brings us to the end of today's show. As I mentioned, there is that look ahead to Wednesday's Bayer Leverkusen Atalanta game, and then Thursday we'll review that and look ahead to the FA Cup final. For what it's worth. Tim Spiers, thank you so much.
Thank you
for adding this to your many duties today. JJ, lovely to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Do you want to sing anything as to
Not
sing
really,
us out?
no.
Okay. Matt, lovely to see you. Thanks for coming over. And listener, you as well, as I shout out to producer Charlie and Liam in the booth. Listener, you, for all your hard listening all through this season. Of course, it's by no means over. We've got shows coming up, so I hope you'll join us for those. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.